The COVID-19 pandemic was hard for people of all ages. It took a piece of our normal lives away, making everyone isolated, alone, in fear of getting sick. During the pandemic, I was in the middle of completing my last year of high school. I was getting ready for prom and graduation, and also looking forward to starting my first year of university. But in March of 2020, all my plans were put to a stop. This video will explore the COVID pandemic through the lens of teens, how this large event affected their lives, and how it may still be affecting them now as adults. I've gotten 6 volunteers to share their COVID stories with us.
Hi, my name is Jess.
Hi, my name is Maggie Murray.
Hi, my name is Mairead Murphy.
Hi, my name is Emily.
Hi, I'm Kenzie.
Hi, my name is Jessica.
High school being put to a stop was very difficult for teens. We were suddenly forced to go from being in class surrounded by resources and others our age to suddenly sitting alone in our rooms staring at a computer screen for hours.
So in high school, the switch from in-person to online learning was pretty quick. It definitely gave me something to do, but at the same time, I was not as motivated to do my schoolwork when it was online, especially because I think at that point, whatever grade you had in each class couldn't be lower than what it was at that given time. And that was only at the beginning of the semester, so everyone's grades were pretty high.
Yeah, mine was the same in high school. My teachers slowly posted stuff, but I didn't really do them because my mark wasn't dropping. And then at the end, your final project worth 15%, I don't know if you guys had that didn't even count to your mark. So I kind of lost motivation to do it too.
During the pandemic and being online during high school, I found the teachers really didn't know what to do, and we didn't really know what to do because it was so new to all of us. It was just a long time to be on a screen, and then you would get half an hour to an hour for lunch. That's the only break you had from the screen. So I found that was really hard for me.
When we went online, I hated it because there were certain times that we had to go on and when I wanted to lay in bed.
It was harder to get up in the morning.
It was harder to get up in the morning, yeah.
I had a really hard time not falling asleep in class because your first time being on a screen watching, you just want to be in bed because you're not going to school and getting up in the morning. The change of routine was insane.
When I was in the 12th grade, I had high expectations for my first year of university. I was excited to go live in residence, have large classes, learn from experienced professors, and make new friends. But because of the pandemic, my first year looked quite different from what I thought.
Then our whole first year of university and most of our second year too was fully online, which was also kind of a weird transition because we were just stuck either at home or in res, whatever, just doing online courses with they were all asynchronous, so there was not really any live instruction or interaction with peers, which was definitely different than what I was used to. And it was hard to keep up that first year. But luckily, for second semester, they did accept a limited amount of students into res, which is where I obviously met you guys. But that being said, there was a 50% capacity, or maybe it was even less than that, I don't know. But there was basically no one there. And everyone that was there, I wasn't allowed to talk to because we were only allowed to see the people who lived in our suites. And even then, we had to wear a mask in our suites. There was no meeting other people, couldn't go out to party.
I also remember with my, I had one, that one suite mate that I never really saw. So most of the people I would spend time with, they were, outside of my, suite, or they're on my floor. And we would walk to the dining hall together, get food together, but we would go back and you wouldn't be allowed to sit together and eat. You weren't allowed in each other's rooms, and it made it so tough, especially, most of my roommates, they at least had other roommates that they could actually see during the day. But I was pretty much on my own, and it was definitely, at some days it was just it was tough. I was why did I come here? I'm away from my family, and it was hard.
Yeah, and even if you wanted to go home, they made it so difficult for you to, come back because of the 2-week isolation.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to go home, so totally isolated from my family too.
So my experience with my first year in university was a lot of the classes were in person first semester. They were trying to get back into it, or it would be if you had this class 3 times a week, 2 would be in person, 1 would be online, and it would be scheduled meeting times, and I liked that better. But I also think it was hard because O week was all online, so we never got to experience that, and I found it harder to meet new people because we were pretty much in our rooms, and if we were going to class, it was only to class.
Yeah.
And like you had masks on, so it made you not want to talk to people. And then for second semester, after Christmas break, we were online again for 2 weeks, but we couldn't even move back into res. So it was just like very hard because we kept flipping between in-person and online. It was kind of like everything was so unknown, and I felt like it was harder because it was so like,
You couldn't find your rhythm.
yeah, exactly.
My classes in first year, they were like really, really big science classes, like 200, 300, whatever people. So they're always online. They were always like just in like DE whenever you want to do it. And that was really hard to like, I'm going to watch this math video for an hour.
Right.
Randomly on my own time. I think it really helps if you're like introverted versus extroverted.
Right,
Because like I
exactly.
was really introverted. I didn't want to forcibly go out and meet people. I would just wait until like an opportunity, like being in class together, and that never really arrived for me. Like sometimes in physics I met some people, but like I never like went out of my way to meet people, which was really hard because like there was never like forcible situations.
Well, and I think
Before the pandemic, I was involved in many extracurricular activities. I played field hockey, tap danced, and even had a job. But when the pandemic hit, I had to stop all of it. We were lucky to have Zoom as it allowed me to continue dancing at home, but it was still not the same.
So a lot of things, like a lot of my extracurricular activities and things that I enjoyed were just so abruptly canceled because of COVID. I was really looking forward in the summer to playing field hockey. Fortunately, that was canceled, and that was my last year that I could have played because now I've aged out of the system, so I'm too old, which was really sad too because I didn't get to play that last year that I was looking forward to.
There's a couple things for me. I know in February I had just gotten a job at a vet clinic, so I was working at the pet store, and I just started part-time at the vet clinic, and I was loving it. I only honestly worked probably like 5 hours total, and then COVID hit, and they kept me on for a couple of weeks, but I couldn't go in. They were just like, oh, we'll see like what happens, we'll see what like the regulations are, and then eventually they just ended up saying like, we're really sorry, but we can't keep you on. So I did end up losing that opportunity, which really sucked. And then I know I was playing hockey at the time with my high school too when everything hit, so that got shut down, which really sucked. And I was going to be playing rugby. And yeah, I haven't really gotten that really back into sports since. I kind of feel like I missed out on that, like finishing up high school. And I mean, I used to love playing sports, and I think it's just been hard to get back into it, especially like we're all so busy now, and it's just been hard to prioritize that.
Before COVID and as well as into the COVID pandemic, I worked as a respite worker, so I was a support person for a young woman with a disability. And so because that was my job, I unfortunately couldn't work with the woman I worked for because she was immunocompromised, and she could only be in contact with a very limited number of people. So she had only one support worker for many months, and she usually has 10 to 20 that work with her at a given time. So not only did it take a toll on all of the workers, but also on her to only be with one person and not have any kind of other interactions was definitely hard. Eventually, when the rules loosened up a little bit, support workers were one of the first people to be able to go back to like the normal work routine kind of, because they were in demand so much. So I was able to go back to work quite soon. However, it was really demanding for me because there was so much more of that one-on-one interaction, and there was nowhere for us to go. Usually we would go on outings or go outside to talk to people and go to social events, but none of that was allowed. So
I personally played hockey for 8 years, and then COVID hit and we weren't able to play hockey anymore.
like for tap, we wouldn't even practice as a team.
No, in groups.
In groups, it was in groups, right? So it was even hard to like get to know your team from that. You know, like with dance and stuff, like we kind of are similar in that way. All of our classes, like we've been dancing since what we were like two or three. So like all of our classes went from being in person to like having the same team to then now online and trying to find space in your house to do this online. Even during last year when January hit, first year university, when we were
scared we weren't going to compete.
we were scared we weren't going to compete, and it's like, oh, we had a competition this day, oh wait, it got canceled. And even like the last 2 years that we had,
Yeah.
like we didn't get our graduating year, so like we never got to do all those things that everyone else got to experience. And I think that kind of like was heartbreaking, because it's like you dedicate all your time to 12 years of the sport,
Almost nothing.
and then you get like nothing out of it because of COVID.
Yeah.
It's like you didn't get to go on stage for your last time. Like luckily we had the experience to do this in university.
Oh, yeah.
One of the toughest parts of the pandemic was missing out on major milestones. In your last year of high school, one usually gets to have a fun prom and a large graduation ceremony, but that was all taken away from us.
So some of the ways that I celebrated important milestones, I know for graduation, my friends and I, we went to our school and like we got our little caps, and then we took photos there, and we took prom photos. I ended up taking prom photos like 3 different times, but missing out on it, especially seeing students like now going to prom and stuff, definitely made me feel like we were almost like robbed of those experiences.
We were, for sure, and it's definitely something that was so sad, because at that time in my life, that was like the most important thing, like graduating and prom. Like you look forward to that your whole life, especially as you get close to that point in graduation. And because it came on so suddenly, like no one knew what to expect. We didn't know that we'd be losing those super important things. And when we did, it was so upsetting.
I know for my grad, the teachers like drove by and gave us the caps and gowns and stuff, and then we had like a YouTube live or whatever. So I sat in my living room and watched it, and it was like my family was there, and we had like a special dinner and everything. So it was still nice, and we still like found a way to celebrate and stuff. It was just really weird not being with my friends and with my other classmates and with everyone, and having that like last goodbye before you like.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many people who I just like never saw again, which is like, it happens, but it was so unexpected. And then all my like acquaintances that I was in class with, just I never talked to them again after that.
I remember watching like our grad, they made a video with just like the student photos and like all the awards you won, and like I wanted to go up and get my diploma. Like I was really excited for that, and it was just, I have like such a vivid memory of like sitting in my basement with my family, and my photo came up, and they're like, oh my god, wow. And I'm like,
I was lucky. I had a group of friends, and we did prom with the 4 of us in my friend's barn. We went up into like the roof of a barn, and we were like in the corners of this barn with masks on. But I know not everyone got that chance to do anything like that. Some people didn't even want to buy a prom dress, because like what's the point? You don't want to spend all that money. Some people got them off of like really cheap websites just for one picture and then calling it a day. I definitely wish it was more of something. Usually it's like a collective of like all your people from your school are all coming together, saying goodbye, the whole tears, the whole situation. But nope, I was just in a barn.
I didn't get a prom dress. I just got a dress off a website. But I know seeing like all like the kids a year younger than us, I was so jealous, because I wanted to experience that, and it was so sad just like looking at all those pictures and realizing that we weren't.
Those teachers put in for them, because it hadn't happened in 2 years, and we were like, that was supposed to be us. But even buying your prom dress was a different experience.
Of course, you couldn't go in with the mirrors and the thing.
Exactly. Well, when I went and got my prom dress, we had to buy all the prom dresses, bring them home, try them on, and then return the ones you didn't want. So my mom spent like thousands of dollars on prom dresses just for me to go home and try them on. And we made like 4 or 5 trips back and forth. But it's like just that, and then graduation.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't get your grad. We did a drive-through grad, and you had to go
with a piece of paper.
with
It
your
wasn't
last
a diploma. They didn't have the diplomas ready, so they just had a piece of paper and a ribbon. Like it was
Well,
pretty
but
sad.
then it was like my school. We always do it at the Velodrome.
Yeah.
So it was like this big thing, and it's like we never got to walk across the stage. So you put
No.
12 years of hard work into this to graduate, and you go through a drive-through, get a piece of paper, and sit back in your car.
I still don't have my diploma.
Like I just got mine.
Just now.
Like I just got mine, and we got a cup, and that was it.
Something that went unseen to many teens was the effects the pandemic had on their mental health. Being constantly alone when you're used to being in social situations can cause a major shift in one's life and negatively affect their mental state.
So isolation with COVID was a really big problem for me, because in January 2021, my dad had a stroke. And yeah, he went to the hospital. We brought him to the hospital. We actually thought he had COVID because he didn't have like normal stroke symptoms. So we brought him to the hospital for COVID, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, he's having a stroke. If you would have come in an hour later, he would have been like brain dead or something like that."
Oh my god.
Yeah. So we brought him in just on time, and he was in the hospital for months. And with COVID, I couldn't go see him. He was allowed one person to go see him, so it was my
Your
mother.
mom, obviously, yeah.
I never got to see him until March when he got out. And like he was like transferred to different hospitals, and I still couldn't see him. I could never visit. So I felt really isolated, right? Because like I could only text with him.
Well, and your mom wasn't home.
Yeah, my mom was always at the hospital, and like she was really stressed. My mom also went to the hospital once because she was so stressed out that she
Right.
got almost like a heart condition almost, because like it's a lot,
Yeah.
you know, and like you can't go to see somebody. And I felt so bad with like the healthcare providers. They're working so unbelievably hard, and I'm just like, I want my dad home, but I also, you know, they have a lot of people to take care of. You can't expect them to take care of one person randomly. So it was really isolating, and I couldn't like go and talk to friends because no one could. So FaceTime and they were my best friends.
Yeah, like I found isolating for me, like I didn't realize I was such a social person until I could not leave my house. And like we went away that March that it hit.
Yeah,
So
that was
Doug
good
was
for
like,
you.
"Oh, like go, you'll be fine." And then we landed, and he said, "No, you guys need to come back. Like if you went away, you need to come back." But then I had to quarantine for 2 weeks, and that was really hard for me because I just wanted to like see my friends when I got back.
Of course, you just were away for so
You went
long.
away. You went away for a week. Like that's typically what you do. You come home.
You tell them all about it.
Exactly, and it's like I'm in a relationship with my boyfriend, and it's like I couldn't see him, and then it's like his birthday came, and we still couldn't see each other because it was all the unknown, and he lives with his grandma, so he's living with his grandma, who if she gets it, they don't know what can happen.
Yeah.
And I have an autoimmune disorder,
Yeah.
so we didn't know what would happen to me if I got it, so
Yeah,
we all had to be really careful, and like obviously the rule was do not go out, stay in your house. Like having to FaceTime constantly, I was on my phone all the time. The screen time went up, which is not good for me. I spent countless hours just watching movies, and I got bored. I didn't realize how bored I was. I never wanted to see Netflix again when I could get out of that 2 weeks. I ended up like painting my room, like rearranging everything, because it's like that's the only thing I could do. I couldn't really go out to the store. And like my mom didn't want us going out grocery shopping, so I didn't even get to leave my house really. And like going for a walk, yeah, I could go walk with my friend, but we had to walk on opposite sides of the sidewalk. Like we had the sidewalk in between us, and we'd walk on the grass. Like we had to stay 6 feet apart, and if we didn't, like our parents would find out eventually, so like we did not. And it took a long time for us to be able to do that. So just like being stuck in your house with no one to talk to but the same people constantly was, oh my gosh, my brain was gonna explode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember on TikTok there was kind of like a trend going on. It was related to working out, and there's this one YouTuber. She's a fitness influencer. Her name's Chloe Ting.
Oh, Chloe.
And everyone during COVID started doing the Chloe Ting workouts to get like the perfect body and like the 6-pack abs or whatever. And I remember I was like so into that, and every day I had nothing else to do, so that was all I was focused on. And every day I would work out for like 3 hours because I had the time, and everyone else on social media was influencing this idea of like the perfect body and Chloe Ting workouts and all that kind of stuff. And then I did it for so long, and then eventually I realized like this is so dumb. Like I don't know why I was so influenced by other people, but at that time there was nothing else to compare myself to, and like I wanted to do that because other people on social media were also influencing that idea. So yeah, that was kind of like a hard thing to deal with, and then seeing how all these other people were so into it. So also during the time of isolation, I was kind of looking for some new things to try, and I did kind of want to improve myself, my physical health, as well as my mental health. And I was influenced by the 75-day Heart Challenge, and it's basically a mental toughness challenge. It involves different things like reading a book and working out 2 times a day and going outside and following a diet. And at the time I thought this would be such an awesome thing to try to kind of give me something to focus on and also to improve my overall health. which I feel like it did. I felt better. I felt like just a happier, healthier individual. But at the same time, I kind of fell into a rut of like everything I wanted to do was like revolved around this idea of like being healthy. So I would only eat healthy things. I would go literally work out like 3 times a day. I was so invested in this challenge, which like seems like a great thing, but also then all my mindset, like that's all I focused on. And it was kind of almost like a disordered mindset because I was so like hyper fixated on doing these specific things to be like quote unquote healthy. But looking back, I don't know if it actually was. And even still now, like I don't follow this challenge anymore, but I still kind of have some like harmful mindsets from it. Like I need to be eating healthy, or I need to be working out this many amount of times a week, which is like overall they're good things to consider. But when that's all that you think about, it can kind of become challenging and problematic.
I remember my first time being able to go to the grocery store. My mom was like, "You need to get out of the house." Like my mom was like she could see that I was starting to get into a depressive state, and like I've never had so many mental breakdowns. I cry a lot, but I've never cried that much in my life. And just like from not being able to leave the house, like you have everything on, like school, dance. Like dance was my escape, and I couldn't even go do that.
No.
And so it was like weird.
Real.
But my first time going to the grocery store, I'm like, I've never been so excited to go grocery shopping in my life.
Apples.
Like it was just so much fun. I was like, oh my gosh, I get to leave my house. But like it was also scary. Like I found I would hold my breath when I walked by people because I was scared to breathe. And I didn't realize, or like I'd be constantly sanitizing. I'm like, oh my god, someone's in the middle of the aisle. I have to walk by them, but I have to stay 6 feet apart. Like it was just like the anxiety went through the roof for me. Every day I was obsessed with watching the COVID numbers and seeing them go up and watching the news. It was just stressful, and I think it caused a lot of anxiety in me, and I don't think I've ever really been able, like it's definitely gotten better, but I think it's always going to be there. And like the social anxiety from being stuck in isolation for so long.
My mental health was at an all-time low during COVID. I feel like most people's were. I feel like mine was a little, I don't know if it was different than most people, but like we were used to going and working out for like dance all the time, like going out and dancing multiple hours, multiple days a week. So I was really struggling of like how to find that exercise, that physical activity to like take your mind up of everything that was going on. So like I tried to take up running, I tried to take up like I would go on the treadmill all the time, I would do all these things, and it ended up turning into an eating disorder because I was like so obsessed with something that wasn't COVID or that wasn't going on with like the background that I was trying to focus on anything else, and it spiraled really, really bad of like just focusing on all the wrong things. Basically, I was like, I don't want to look at the COVID numbers, I'm going to look at my calorie numbers, you know, like trying to take my mind off of it. So that was something that really affected it. I don't blame COVID, but like that was a real...
It was a factor that went into it.
Yeah, that was a really big thing that affected it, and it's something that I'm still like working through now. Like it is still like keeps going. I'm trying to like have a better relationship with food, and like being out of COVID is such a better thing for it because like my friends are there for me. You have more options of what you can eat at home versus out. You can always go out and eat food if I don't have stuff at home. So like it's a lot easier, at least for me personally, to get out of that bad thinking.
Well, and then access to cravings is easier.
Yeah, like you're not at home with like the almonds and then that's it. Like, you know, like you can actually like go get a small amount of something and then like, you know, have it go away and not like stuck in a spiral of like, oh my god, I want this, and then just like binging on other things so you can't have the one thing you want because you can't go and get it. So that was a big one for me.
I would actually, like it's kind of ironic that you said that because I went through a phase too where because I didn't have dance and have like the 5 days a week that I was going and dancing and getting that energy and the cardio in, I found I looked at my body a lot more, and I would look at, oh, how to do this, how to do that, how to lose weight fast, how to do this, and I found myself not eating and working out way too much, and I started to love the results, but I realized, oh my gosh, I can see my ribs. This is not good.
Healthy.
And I can also relate to both of you too. I've been through like an eating disorder twice. The first time was during the first COVID spot when we were isolated, and I kept hearing like everyone kept getting like bigger because they would eat so much.
Yeah.
And then I was scared of that. So then
Yeah, you do too much in
yeah,
response.
so then
yeah.
I wouldn't eat, and then I would also do the workouts all
Yeah.
the time, and like that affected me for like when COVID was done, because then I was like starting to gain more weight, and then COVID hit again, and my boyfriend at the time was miserable because of COVID, and I went through it once again, and yeah, like it really puts a toll on your mental health. Yeah, also like when those eating disorders happened, like I went to an eating disorder therapist, whatever, and honestly, like when I went there, it made it so much worse because they were telling me like different ways that I could like lose weight instead of not eating, and then I was like, okay, what if I try both ways? And like it wasn't really helping.
Yeah, it's not.
And then like I went through two, and like the one did not help at all. Like it made it so much worse. And then the other one, they gave me papers to do, and like I would do a Zoom meeting every week and like write down like what I love about myself and stuff. So that helped. But like it was still on Zoom. Like I couldn't see them in person. They
that
never
doesn't
really
give the
got
same
to
comfort.
actually see me, and like yeah.
When times get really tough, something that I always find helps is talking to people. Having support systems, especially during times like the pandemic, can be really beneficial for improving mental health.
I remember this one time. It was the day that we found out. I can't remember if it was prom or graduation. I think it was prom. The day that we found out it was canceled, they sent like an email to all of us. And as soon as I opened the email, I just like broke down in tears. I was so upset because at that time, that was like the most important thing. And then because that was canceled, I was so upset, and I just like was crying on my floor in my bedroom. And my mom came in. She kind of reassured me that like for me, it's like I was grieving the loss of my high school graduation and prom, which is definitely for me a big deal, but for other people probably not. But everyone was like going through their own stuff. But personally, I just felt that was like something that really upset me, and I was I didn't really feel like talking about that to anyone. So, because I felt bad. But, yeah.
I was the same way. I've never really liked talking about my feelings, but I think it definitely got worse over COVID. Like, I was with my siblings in the car, we were, like, just driving around, and I was just, like, upset. And when I'm upset, I kind of, like, they know, and they can get me to talk about it, and then I just completely broke down, too. It was, again, it's just little things, and I didn't want to talk to anyone about it, again, because I didn't, like, they didn't really understand what I was going through. Like, my sister got her whole thing. Like, she was valedictorian. Like, she got to go up on the stage and give a whole speech. She got, like, a regular first year, and I was just so upset with, like, everything.
Like, for me personally, like, I was never really comfortable going to my parents about this stuff because I didn't think they would ever understand. They're just like, oh, you're being dramatic. So I just felt like if I went to them, they were going to be like, oh, get over it. You're fine. So I would talk to my boyfriend a lot about it, and he helped. He was there for me. He supported me. He, like, just was there for me to rant to him, and he was there to listen. And I felt like I had friends that were there too, but no one really understands it unless they're going through it.
No, of course not.
And I think I never had friends I could go to that I knew were going through it as well. So it got really hard for me, and I lost a lot of friends through it because I isolated myself.
Yeah, I lost friends too when my dad went through his stroke. When bad things happen to me, I just close in because I don't want
exactly.
to burden anybody.
And you don't want to open up to people
And
too.
it's hard to opening up. So I just stopped talking to my dance friends, and I guess they were like, okay, and didn't really talk to me. Like, they didn't reach out, and I don't blame them for it because I completely closed off. So I didn't have that much support with that, and with the disordered eating, in my head, it was my parents' fault almost. Like, they were the ones encouraging it, and they also have really bad weight problems, like weight issues with their body. So I didn't want to go to them.
Yeah, your mom's always been like very self-conscious about herself too.
So I had a friend who was who lived like 5 minutes away, and we would like sit on opposite sides of the baseball field and like yell our problems to each other. So like that kind of helped, and like texting was a good thing. Yeah, but it was hard because sometimes you don't want to go to people with your problems on top of all their problems. You don't want to make another thing on their list of all these problems that they're going through.
I had a similar experience. Like, texting was always great for me, and like it was the opposite for me. Like, my parents are the one who sent me to go get help for the eating disorder because they noticed the weight loss. And like, yeah, texting helped me. FaceTime, like all my friends.
Right,
Yeah,
it's just hard because it's also not the same.
Yeah.
Texting
No,
is not
of
the
course
same as
it's
seeing
not.
No.
somebody in person and being able to talk to them.
And neither is FaceTime.
Well, exactly.
No.
And like you also never know, like maybe people stopped talking to me because they were going through the same thing.
Yeah, you never know.
And you never know because you guys, like, we were never able to talk about it.
The COVID pandemic truly put a big stop into our normal lives and affected many people very negatively. With such a massive and sudden change in one's life, it can lead to changes in oneself that can last for a long time.
So during the COVID isolation, I got really used to being by myself. And as someone who used to be so busy and always into school and extracurriculars and hanging out with friends, I was always busy. I was never at home. And then once I actually had that opportunity to be by myself, I realized that I'm definitely an introverted person. And I love spending time by myself, which I had no idea pre-COVID that I was even like that. But so much time of being alone actually made me today, like, I'm still very introverted, but also sometimes, like, I do find myself isolating myself too much, I think, because I enjoy it so much. But then I realize after, I'm like, oh, like, I probably should have gone out with my friends today, or I should have gone to that party, or I should have had dinner with my mom, like, stuff like that. That usually I, like, before COVID, I totally would be down to do. I now kind of am more reserved in that aspect, and, like, I like being by myself.
I think I was kind of the same. I did realize I do like spending time alone, but once all the restrictions kind of lifted, it made me like realize how much I used to take for granted. So it did make me want to go out and like make the most of what we have. So I've gotten more involved, especially compared to when I was in high school. Like, I think it is easier being like living in Guelph and having like easier ways to get around. Just tons of people around all the time.
I feel like there's a lot of residual stuff. Like, we've already talked about this, but like the anxiety of being in public. My social anxiety got so much worse after all this. Like that, and like my mother's is a healthcare worker. She's a personal service worker with elderly. So like I never used to be scared of her job, but like now she's coming home and I'm like scared for her. I'm scared every time she leaves because like I think I'm more aware of like diseases and like the miscibility, whatever, how like transmissible things are, and like I'm so scared of her getting stuff or me giving it to her to give it to somebody else in an older person's like environment. Like you can do everything right and you can still get sick. Like I got COVID and I was doing, I hope, everything right. I was vaccinated. I did all the things, you know, and I know you did too.
Yeah, like I got it as well, and I wear my mask all the time and make sure it covers my nose and everything. I made sure I was washing my hands, sanitizing my groceries, everything like that. Like I would do all of that, and I still ended up getting it, and now I'm living with all those side effects.
Yeah, you have more side effects.
Like the shortness of breath and everything, and it's like, what more could I have done? And I think that's where it gets frustrating, because now we're living with that. But also, every time we get sick, we think it's COVID now.
Yep.
So like, I know we went through, like in our house, it's been really bad. We keep getting sick, and every time we're like, who has COVID?
Yeah, you do the test so
we
often.
all test, and it's like, we don't have that stuff. So it's like, we all live with like the nervousness from all the ideas, I guess, the government has put in our head. Like, to, if you get sick, make sure you test because you never know what it is. And now, because numbers are getting higher again, everything's unknown.
It's almost inevitable, it feels like, because you can do everything and still.
Yeah, and like the whole mental health stuff behind it. Like I feel like, for me personally, I still deal with mental health issues because of it. I definitely got anxiety from this, and I do blame COVID.
Personally, getting out, like when COVID was not a thing afterwards, I could not go like in bigger spaces than 15 people. Like I was scared to go to parties. I was scared to, I still am scared sometimes to walk into a grocery store. Like just like realizing that I could get sick from literally anyone or touching like something, like a box or something. Like it's crazy, and I think that's really affected me.